Welcome to another deep dive with my mind mashups. Really glad you could join us today. Imagine this. What if a cure for cancer wasn't just some far-off dream, but maybe, just maybe, around the corner? And maybe even free.
It sounds almost like science fiction, doesn't it? A huge claim.
Exactly, and that's what we're diving into today. Russia's recent announcements about developing a personalized mRNA-based cancer vaccine, it's really grabbed global attention.
It really has. Especially that part about potentially providing it to Russian citizens free of charge. I mean, the combination of a potential breakthrough and that accessibility promise.
Yeah.
That's why everyone's talking.
Absolutely. It's created quite a stir. So our mission today is to really, unpack these announcements. We want to look at the science, how the story's changed over time.
See where it fits in the bigger picture of global cancer research.
Right. And figure out what it really means for the fight against cancer. We want to help you cut through all the noise and get to the core of it. So, let's get started. Okay, so this story really started making waves back in late 2024, didn't it? With some pretty eye-catching headlines. What exactly was announced back then?
Well, yeah, back in mid-December 2024, Russia's Ministry of Health, along with some research institutes, they made this official announcement. They claimed they'd developed a personalized mRNA cancer vaccine.
Okay.
And then, come February 2025, President Putin himself mentioned Russia being close to creating these cancer vaccines. So that kind of amplified it.
Right.
But the really striking part was the specific promise that followed. If it works, this vaccine would be given to Russian cancer patients totally free. The government would cover the cost.
Wow. Free. That's a massive commitment, isn't it? Especially when you hear the estimated cost per dose is around $300,000. That's almost, what, US $2,900?
It's huge. Think about the numbers. Russia has something like 4 million people living with cancer right now.
4 million.
And they diagnose over 600,000 new cases every year. So providing a free personalized vaccine, even just for some of those patients, it needs enormous sustained funding. And the infrastructure for it.
Yeah, the logistics alone.
Exactly. It definitely carries, significant political weight, making that promise. But the financial side, the practical side, those are massive challenges.
Okay, so we have this incredibly ambitious announcement, this huge promise. But as always in science, the reality often needs a closer look. What's the actual timeline looking like now? Those initial reports sounded super optimistic, talking about general circulation in early 2025. Has that changed?
Oh, it definitely has shifted, yeah. As of now, sort of mid to late 2025, the picture is quite different. Human clinical trials for their personalized mRNA melanoma vaccine, that's the first target, are planned to start within the next few months.
Okay, so trial starting soon, not general release.
Right. And experimental administration, meaning giving it to trial participants, might begin as early as September, October 2025. So the key thing for you listening is, this vaccine is still very much in the early stages. Preclinical or maybe just starting phase 1 clinical development.
Got it. Not given to the public yet.
Not at all. Not outside these planned trials. And initially they're focusing on melanoma, then hoping to look at pancreatic, kidney, and lung cancers down the line.
Then I heard something about the regulatory side, that Russia created a faster pathway for these kinds of therapies.
Yes, that's right. They set up a new sort of expedited regulatory path specifically for these individualized mRNA treatments. Now, on one hand, that could speed up getting it approved within Russia. But on the other hand, it does raise some eyebrows internationally. Concerns about potentially skipping over some standard safety checks that usually take longer.
Right, speed versus maybe thoroughness. That brings us to the science itself. How is this vaccine actually supposed to work? Because like you said, it's not your average flu shot, is it?
No, absolutely not. It's completely different. Universal vaccines, like for flu or COVID, target something common to everyone who gets the virus. These personalized mRNA vaccines, they're custom-made, tailored specifically to one person's tumor.
Custom-made. Okay, how do they do that? What's the process like?
Well, it's basically a 3-step process. First, they need a piece of the patient's tumor, a biopsy.
Okay.
Then they sequence the DNA and RNA from that tumor sample. They're looking for something called neoantigens. Think of them as unique flags or markers that are specific to that patient's cancer cells caused by mutations.
So like a fingerprint for the cancer?
Exactly, a genetic fingerprint. And here's where it gets really high-tech. They use advanced AI algorithms to sift through all this genetic data and basically design a blueprint for the vaccine for that specific patient.
Wow, AI is actually designing the vaccine based on the tumor's unique code. That's pretty amazing.
It is cutting-edge stuff, using serious computational power to figure out the tumor's specific weaknesses.
Okay, so they have the blueprint. What's next? How do they make it?
That's step 2. Rapid manufacturing. They synthesize therapeutic mRNA based on that blueprint. This mRNA carries the instructions for making those specific tumor markers, the neoantigens. This happens at production facilities, like the Gamaleya Institute in Russia.
And they claim this part is fast.
That's a major part of the claim, yes. They suggest it takes roughly 1 week from getting the tumor sequence to having the vaccine ready. That speed, they argue, is crucial, especially for cancers that grow really quickly. Getting that AI assist in the modeling phase is supposed to make it happen that fast.
A week, okay. And the final step, getting it to the patient and, well, hoping it works.
Right. Step 3 is delivery and triggering the immune response. The manufactured mRNA is packaged up, usually in lipid nanoparticles like the COVID vaccines, and injected into the patient.
Okay.
Once inside, the mRNA tells the patient's own cells, often immune cells like dendritic cells, to start producing those specific tumor antigens, those flags we talked about.
Ah, so it makes your own body produce the cancer markers.
Exactly. It essentially shows these flags to the immune system, training it, teaching it to recognize those specific markers as dangerous and foreign. The goal is for the patient's own immune system T cells, primarily, to then hunt down and destroy any cells displaying those markers, whether it's the main tumor or cancer cells that have spread, the metastases.
So you're basically training your own internal army to find and fight that specific cancer.
That's a good way to put it. And a key detail here is that this vaccine is designed to encode multiple neoantigens for each patient, not just one.
Why is that important? Why multiple?
Well, think about the COVID vaccines. They mostly target just the spike protein. Cancer is trickier, it mutates. If you only target one marker, the cancer might change slightly and escape the immune system. By targeting several unique markers at once, the hope is to make it much harder for the cancer to hide or develop resistance. Reduces the risk of what we call immune escape.
I see. Makes sense. So it's a more robust attack.
That's the aim. And, this whole concept, personalized neoantigen mRNA vaccines, it's not unique to Russia. It's actually a really active and exciting area of research globally. Companies like Moderna and Merck are doing similar things. BioNTech has partnerships, like the one in the UK. So the idea is definitely part of the mainstream cutting edge of cancer immunotherapy research.
Which brings us nicely to the, let's say, the reality check part, the skepticism. Because as exciting as this sounds, there's been a lot of caution from the global scientific community, right? Where does this Russian claim actually stand scientifically as of now?
Right, and this is really crucial. As of August 2025, the only results that have been publicly mentioned are from preclinical animal studies, mostly in mice.
Okay, animal studies.
These studies apparently show the vaccine could suppress tumor growth and metastasis in those models, which sounds good, but this is a huge, but results in mice often don't translate directly to humans. What works in a lab animal doesn't always work the same way or safely in people.
So the jump from mice to humans is a big one.
It's a massive hurdle. And the other major issue here is transparency. There haven't been any peer-reviewed scientific papers published detailing the methods, the full data, the safety results. Nothing that outside experts can actually scrutinize and validate.
No published data for other scientists to look at.
Not in the way that's standard practice for major breakthroughs. This makes it impossible for the international community to really assess if it works, how well it works, if it's safe, or even the specifics of the science behind it. Professor Kingston Mills, a respected immunologist, basically summed it up.
Yeah.
Until scientists see data from clinical trials, there has to be skepticism.
And you mentioned phase 1 clinical trials were starting soon. Remind us, what's the main goal of phase 1?
Phase 1 is almost entirely about safety. Is it safe to give to humans? What's the right dose? Does it cause serious side effects? They look for some hints of efficacy, sure, but safety is the absolute primary focus before you can even think about moving to larger trials to see if it actually works well.
Right. Safety first.
Always. And that links back to the regulatory path we talked about. Creating a faster track might sound good for patients waiting for treatment, but if it bypasses standard international checks on safety, manufacturing quality, and requires less transparency, well, that raises legitimate concerns for scientists globally.
It really highlights why that phrase cancer vaccine itself can be tricky, because cancer isn't just one thing, is it?
Exactly. That's a fundamental point you have to grasp. Cancer is an umbrella term for hundreds, maybe thousands, of different diseases. We talk about tumor heterogeneity, meaning every single tumor is genetically unique.
Even within the same person.
Yes, and even within the same tumor, different cells can have different mutations. It's incredibly complex and constantly evolving. That's why the idea of a single universal cure for cancer is, frankly, scientifically implausible.
Because you're fighting potentially millions of slightly different enemies.
Precisely. It's why personalized approaches, like these vaccines aim to be, are considered so promising. You need to tailor the attack. And it's also why understanding this complexity helps set realistic expectations. Most cancer risk actually comes down to random mutations that just happen when our cells divide normally. DNA copying isn't perfect, so completely wiping out cancer is probably not feasible.
Okay, so Russia's announcement is definitely making headlines, but it's important to see it as one player entering this much larger global race in cancer vaccine research. Where else are we seeing real progress?
That's exactly the right context. It's a global effort. For instance, you've got Moderna and Merck with their personalized mRNA vaccine, mRNA 4157, also called V940. Their phase 2 trial in melanoma patients was really encouraging.
What did they find?
When they combined their vaccine with Keytruda, which is a standard immunotherapy drug, they saw a 44% reduction in the risk of the cancer coming back or death compared to Keytruda alone.
44% reduction. That's significant.
It really is. And looking at recurrence-free survival people living longer without the cancer returning, it jumped from 62% with Keytruda alone to 79% with the vaccine combo. That's a big leap. It means potentially many more people staying cancer-free longer. And based on that, they've already moved into larger phase 3 trials.
Okay, so that's a major effort moving forward. Any other big examples?
Definitely. The UK government has a big partnership with BioNTech, the company behind the Pfizer COVID vaccine. Their goal is pretty ambitious: provide personalized cancer therapies, including vaccines, to up to 10,000 NHS patients by 2030.
10,000 patients, wow.
Yeah, they've set up something called the NHS Cancer Vaccine Launchpad to help find eligible patients quickly, and BioNTech is even building manufacturing facilities right there in the UK to support it.
So real infrastructure going in.
Absolutely. And BioNTech also has another candidate, autogene cevumeran, developed with a partner in China, Fudan. It showed promise in a phase 1 trial for pancreatic cancer, notoriously difficult to treat, delaying recurrence in some patients.
And it's not just mRNA vaccines, right? Are there other types being worked on too?
Good point. While mRNA is getting a lot of the spotlight now because of the COVID vaccine success and the tech advancements, it's not the only game in town. There are other approaches. For example, dendritic cell vaccines. Sipuleucel T, brand name Prevenge, is actually already FDA approved for prostate cancer. It uses the patient's own immune cells.
Right, I've heard of that one.
And there are also peptide vaccines, protein-based vaccines. Scientists are exploring many different ways to train the immune system. It's a really diverse field.
But even with all this global research, these personalized vaccines still face big challenges, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. Big hurdles remain. One major one is that tumors are clever. They can create an environment around themselves that actively suppresses the immune system. So even if you train the T cells, the tumor might stop them from working effectively when they get there.
The tumor fights back against the immune system.
Exactly. Tumor-induced immunosuppression. Then there's the cost. These are incredibly complex, bespoke therapies. That dendritic cell vaccine, Prevenge, it costs around $100,000 per patient.
Wow. That's not accessible for everyone.
Not even close. And that leads to the third big challenge: accessibility and logistics. Making these personalized treatments widely available, especially the manufacturing part, is a huge undertaking. So you see, Russia's project fits right into this landscape, another team tackling these same tough scientific and practical problems. It's not a standalone miracle cure, but another entrant in this vital global pursuit.
Okay, let's try and pull this together as you wrap up. Looking at the bigger picture, if Russia's vaccine or any of these personalized approaches really proves effective in large trials, what kind of impact are we talking about?
Well, the potential upside is genuinely revolutionary. I mean, if you have highly effective, personalized vaccines, it could fundamentally change how we treat many cancers. Imagine moving away from harsh chemo towards more targeted therapies that use your own immune system, potentially with fewer side effects, better quality of life for millions.
A huge shift in treatment.
And it could also really change global health dynamics. Imagine if advanced treatments like this became more accessible worldwide. That would be transformative.
But alongside those hopes, there are always risks, aren't there? What should we be cautious about?
Absolutely. The biggest risk is overpromising and underdelivering. When you raise hopes so high, especially about something like cancer, and the results don't match the hype, it can really damage public trust in science.
Which is so important.
Critically important. There's also the risk, especially with state-backed projects, that political messaging can race ahead of the actual validated science, making big claims before the data is really in and peer-reviewed. And, as we touched on, the concern about potentially rushing through regulatory processes without full international transparency and safety validation is always there.
So what's the main takeaway for our listeners? When they hear about breakthroughs like this, what's the most important thing to keep in mind about conquering complex diseases like cancer?
I think the core message is that real progress, especially for something as complex as cancer, almost always comes from collaboration. Global teamwork, sharing data openly, letting scientists everywhere scrutinize the results through peer review. That's how robust breakthroughs happen.
It's a team effort, not a solo race.
Exactly. Progress against cancer is likely going to be incremental, coming from continued research on many fronts.
Yeah.
Better prevention, like HPV vaccines, earlier detection methods, combination therapies, and yes, hopefully, increasingly effective personalized immunotherapies like these vaccines. But the idea of one single magic bullet cure for all cancers popping up overnight, given the sheer biological complexity and diversity of cancer, that's just highly, highly improbable.
Right. So let's summarize this deep dive. Russia's claims about a personalized mRNA cancer vaccine, definitely exciting, definitely part of a super important area of global research. But, and it's big, but as of August 2025, these claims are still unproven in large-scale human trials. It's not a universal cure waiting just around the corner.
Exactly. And that idea of a single cure for all cancers, remember, that's just not realistic given how incredibly varied cancer is. Cancer heterogeneity is the key concept there.
We definitely encourage you to keep watching this space, follow the developments as trials progress, not just from Russia, but from all the research teams working incredibly hard on this around the globe.
It's a field worth watching, for sure.
You know, when it comes to something as huge and emotional as cancer, hope is incredibly powerful, but proof is priceless. Something to think about. Beyond the headlines, how does this discussion change how you think about medical breakthroughs, about the role of global science, and what it really takes to tackle these incredibly complex diseases? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop them in the comments below. And hey, if you found this deep dive useful, please do like, share, and subscribe to My Mind Mashups. It really helps us bring you more discussions like this. You can find My Mind Mashups on Amazon Music, Audible, Facebook, Pocket Casts, Spotify, and YouTube. Thanks for joining us.